Hi. This is the Tiny Movie, and I explain Texas Chainsaw Massacre this time. A crime horror thriller. Come and join me. The movie begins in a gas station, where the past events are recapped on a DVD, when a group of teens meets a homicidal family living in rural Texas, where they are slaughtered. Sally Hardesty, a young woman, was the only survivor. After she escaped, Leatherface, a chainsaw-wielding killer who donned the faces of his victims, removed his mask and disappeared. A young girl, Lila, is watching the DVD in a gas station. She asks about Sally with the gas station attendant. The attendant claims she has spent her entire life looking for the person who murdered her family and friends. Lila joins her sister, Mel, outdoors. Mel's buddy, Dante, and his girlfriend Ruth are going with the girls on their journey. They're on their way to Harlow, a ghost town in Texas. The town was purchased during a bankruptcy sale by Dante, who is a social media influencer. He intends to sell the properties to some wealthy young guys who would develop a new, ideal contemporary town. In their way to Harlow, they get into an argument with an irate Texan called Richter. And then they meet the two police officers in charge of the town. All of the Texans are suspicious of Dante's intention for the town. When the four arrive in Harlow, they discover that Richter is the contractor in charge of renovating the structures. They then come with Mrs. Mack, an elderly woman who used to operate an orphanage in town. Mrs. Mack claims she has paid off her bank loan and is the legal owner of the orphanage. Dante contacts the cops to evict her after he is offended by her racially rude words, Negro, and worried that she would destroy his plans for the town. Mrs. Mack had a medical crisis while the cops are escorting her out of the house. To assist her, a big guy, who is the last orphan to live with Ms. Mack, descends the steps. The guy, the cops, Mrs. Mack, and Ruth board an ambulance to take Mrs. Mack to the hospital. Despite Mel and Lila's dissatisfaction with Dante's handling of the situation, Dante just stays focused on the auction. As the ambulance pulls away, a party bus filled with wealthy, young investors arrives. Lila wanders around town and comes across Richter at work in his shop. When she sees he has a rifle, she explains to him that she was a victim of a school shooting. Lila admits to having survivor's guilt, claiming that everyone expects great things from her, but she doesn't believe she has anything to offer. Moments later, Mrs. Mack passes away in the ambulance, and Ruth texts Dante the terrible news. In his grief, the big guy begins to act violently. The officer sitting behind him tries to draw his weapon, but the guy rips the officer's hand from his arm and stabs him in the throat with the officer's own exposed arm bones. The other cop is immediately shot, and the ambulance collides with abandoned farm machinery. In Harlow, Richter, after hearing of Mrs. Mack's eviction and death, takes Dante's car and the party bus keys, threatening to return them only if Dante can show he's the orphanage's legal owner. Dante searches his files, but can't find the deed. Mel, angry that they may have treated Mrs. Mack cruelly and killed her accidentally, insists that they search her home to see if she really does have the deed as she claims. In the ambulance, Ruth regains consciousness at the accident location. In the side mirror, she notices the big guy scrapping Mrs. Mack's face and putting it to his own. Leatherface is his name. Ruth takes the police radio and attempts to call for help, but only the gas station attendant hears her. Leatherface then uses Mrs. Mack's oxygen tank to crush the head of the second officer he shot earlier. Despite Ruth's attempts to appear dead, Leatherface learns Ruth is alive and murders her by slashing open her stomach with a knife. Then Leatherface starts heading back to Harlow. Meanwhile, the gas station attendant calls his old pal Sally Hardesty, who is now an elderly woman. Sally gathers a cache of guns and drives to Harlow. Dante and Mel had split off to seek for the deed when Leatherface returns to his orphanage home, with Mel having found the deed upstairs, proving Mrs. Mack was the rightful owner after all. Leatherface attacks Dante and uses a butcher cleaver to rip his face away. He then goes upstairs, where Mel is hiding under a bed. When he hears the noises of partygoers outside, Leatherface gets down and begins putting makeup on his mask. When he sees the investors celebrating, he explodes. Leatherface takes out a sledgehammer and starts pounding on the bedroom wall where his old chainsaw is placed inside. Dante is still alive despite his injuries. He goes outdoors and faces Richter and another partygoer. Before dying to his wounds, he warns them about Leatherface. Hearing this, Richter takes out his revolver and walks towards the orphanage, as Lila and the other investors get back into the party bus. When Richter enters the orphanage, Leatherface waits for him behind a door. Mel manipulates a nearby mirror to allow Richter to see where Leatherface is hiding. The two get into a battle, but Leatherface overcomes by hitting Richter in the knee with a sledgehammer. Richter is impaled on a piece of glass by Leatherface, and he collapses to the floor, where he discovers Mel hiding under the bed. Richter hands Mel the keys of the cars before Leatherface finishes him off by crushing Richter's head in with the sledgehammer. Outside the town, Sally notices the ambulance collision site while driving. She stops to investigate and discovers Leatherface has turned Mrs. Mack's body into a hideous monument. Meanwhile, Lila exits the bus in search of Mel and discovers Dante's body. When Leatherface walks into another room to repair his chainsaw, Mel sneaks out and tries to make it to the exit. Leatherface finds her and they struggle, with Mel falling through the old building's floors. As she makes her way into the crawl space, Leatherface uses his now functioning chainsaw to try and cut her apart through the floorboards. When Lila hears the ruckus, she breaks open a basement window and allows Mel to crawl through. The sisters rush to the bus, clutching the keys, demanding that the driver leave right now. The bus starts moving, but then soon stops. When the driver goes out to investigate, Leatherface throws his severed head back into the bus. The investors take out their phones and begin filming Leatherface to stop him. Leatherface hits back by revving his chainsaw and slaughtering everyone. Lila and Mel flee the slaughterhouse via a ceiling emergency exit and begin running. They find an idle car in town and get inside. They discover Sally driving the car, who refuses to leave. Sally instead exits and chases Leatherface back to the orphanage. Sally finds her old tormentor inside. She is holding a shotgun to his head, demanding that he recognize who she is and what he has done to her family and friends. When Leatherface hears Mel and Lila outside, he ignores Sally and quickly goes to the girls. Sally attacks him and tosses her car keys to the girls, after realizing Leatherface either doesn't remember or doesn't care about her. Leatherface and Sally fight. Leatherface stabs her straight through the belly with his chainsaw, despite her wounding him with a shot and stabbing him in the stomach. Leatherface raises Sally off the ground, causing her to sink even deeper into his saw blade, before tossing her into a trash heap. Mel tries to hit Leatherface with the car, but he dodges, and Mel crashes. Mel gets impaled in the leg and can't flee, while Lila runs away without her. Leatherface approaches Mel slowly, ignoring Mel's apologies about what happened to Mrs. Mack. Lila arrives with Richter's rifle, but has no idea how to use it. When they go outside, Leatherface follows Lila and is shot repeatedly by a still-alive Sally. Leatherface is injured and escapes inside an abandoned theater nearby. Sally tells Lila that if she runs, she will be haunted by Leatherface forever, just like Sally was. As Sally passes away, Lila wants to stay and fight. She enters the theater with a gun. Meanwhile, Mel removes the rod that had trapped her leg in the wrecked truck. In the theater, Leatherface tricks Lila into an ambush, and the two fall into a hole filled with water. Lila is the first to come out, but Leatherface grabs her before she can get the gun she dropped. Mel arrives and jumps on Leatherface's back before he can kill Lila. This gives Lila enough time to grab the gun and fire twice at Leatherface. Mel then takes the chainsaw and slashes his throat and face open. In the moments of victory, the sisters watch the monster descend to the bottom of the pit. It's morning now. The girls get into a self-driving car and turn on the autopilot feature. As the vehicle prepares to leave Harlow, Leatherface appears out of nowhere and smashes the passenger side glass, dragging Mel outside. A crying Lila cries as Leatherface decapitates Mel with his chainsaw as the car drives away. In the end, Leatherface walks down a dirt path towards the home he grew up in and where he killed Sally's family. And the movie ends. Thanks for watching.